This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 162 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts. Thank you for joining me today. My guest today is someone I am absolutely honored to welcome to the show. I had the pleasure of hearing her speak back in 2016 when I attended my first Creative at Heart, and I've just kept track of her since then, not in a weird stalkerish kind of way, but I don't think she would mind. I'm talking about Renee Dalo from Moxie Bright Events and the host of Talk with Renee Dalo. Awesome podcast that I love. You should listen to it. We're talking today about how to make the most of your CRM system. Renee is super straightforward. She is an amazing educator. Her tips are practical. She's very pragmatic and extremely strategic. She's going to help you get the most out of your CRM system today. And what's cool is she mentions this in the episode, but I'm going to tell you right now as well, in case you don't want to wait to give it a shot. She has a 30-day free trial of IO Planner for you. You can get that at reneedalo.com/IO Planner. If you cannot take notes right now, that's okay. I took them for you. They're in the show notes. If you don't know how to find the show notes, I bet you can find your Instagram app. You can shoot me a message at She Creates Business and I will point you in the right direction. But if you go to reneedalo.com/IO Planner, you can grab a free 30-day trial of IO Planner and then, wait, there's more, 25% off your first 3 months after that free trial. How sweet is that? Renee, thank you so much. Let me tell you a little bit about this awesome woman. Wedding planning wasn't always in the cards for Renee. Instead, what started out as a seemingly one-time favor for a friend evolved into a thriving side hustle to her acting career. When it was her turn to walk down the aisle, she flipped the script and discovered that the wedding industry was truly where she belonged. Shortly after her I Do, she started Moxie Bright Events, a boutique wedding planning company, and she's never looked back. It wasn't long before fellow industry pros were looking to her for advice. With over 12 years of experience under her belt, Renee turned her knowledge towards the advancement of the industry as a whole and launched her top-notch educational resources for event pros. In addition to her self-guided wedding management e-course, Renee is also the founder and host of the popular B2B podcast, Your Wedding Biz, and host of Talk with Renee Dalo, her currently airing podcast. Renee is a fan favorite on the speaking circuit, taking the stage at conferences across the country, including Wedding MBA, Creative at Heart, Let's Plan Conference, and Tide Talk LA. She is recognized across the industry, having earned a coveted spot on Honeybook's 20 on the Rise list, and she contributes frequently to industry publications. She currently serves as the Vice President of WIPA, Southern California, and has also held leadership roles in the Association of Bridal Consultants and the Rising Tide Society. She's a busy, busy woman, and she has got it going on. I cannot wait for you to hear this episode. Let's get to the show and talk to Renee Dalo from Moxie Bright Events all about how we can make the most of our CRM system. Renee, welcome to the show.
Hi. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. We talked offline for a while. I could keep going. I was thinking to myself, gosh, I better hit record.
I know. I'm like, this is while we're eating into our time with our chit chat.
Yeah, it was just so easy. I felt like I was talking to an old friend, even though this is technically the first time we've talked, although we did cross paths back in 2016 at Creative at Heart, which we determined.
Correct.
Yes.
We did determine. And thank you for bringing that up because like I said, I was on one of the panels, but I was also coming off of a wedding that weekend. So it was all very murky. My memory was murky.
You're like, all faces were a blur.
It's true.
Well, I remembered you because I just remember thinking, Renee is so well-spoken. She's so articulate. She totally has it together. And back in 2016, for me, that is right before we were still in the building process of my venue. And so really the wedding industry itself was not like mysterious, but I wasn't as knee deep, of course, as I am now because I hadn't even started this podcast yet at the time of that conference.
My gosh.
Isn't that crazy?
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I know. Well, now it feels like, because honestly, like longtime listener, first time guest over here, like I feel like you've always had this podcast.
I feel like I do.
I feel like I don't remember a time before She Creates Business was out in the world. So thank you for that. But also, isn't it funny to think like the years are sort of short sometimes. You look back on your years and go like, oh my God, where was I just a few years ago?
That's right. I really do. Yeah. They always say, Emma, I feel like Emily Lay says this a lot. I don't think she made this up, but the days are long, but the years are short. And it's true. Yes. But I feel like Creative at Heart Denver was just, yesterday. It feels like yesterday, yes. But it was over 3 years ago.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yes. And actually, this is the Creative at Heart, and I talk about this on the show. That was kind of the impetus for the podcast now is I was developing something called She Creates Business, but it was totally different at the time. And I'd always wanted to start a podcast. And then finally, especially being not on the panel, you guys, I was not speaking, I was a guest. Being in that panel and being able to hear all of you, I find everything kind of I just heard pieces falling together in my brain. I was like, of course, I will start a podcast interviewing women entrepreneurs in the wedding industry. So full circle. We're full circle, listen, Renee.
Literally, that is like the best ad for going to a conference that I've ever heard. It's like you literally just said what happens to people's brains when they're around other creatives in an isolated experience like a conference. Like, check, done. Check. Go to all the conferences.
All the conferences. It's true. The end. We need to talk about, and we're going to get into this because towards the end, I want to talk about where you're speaking this year because that will be fun for everyone to hear. And I know after they listen to this, they're going to be like, how can I follow Renee around and stalk her? Don't be weird, you guys, but it's fine. So, as I always do, I read your professional bio there at the top of the show, but I'd love for you, take a few minutes, just tell everyone who you are, what you're doing in the industry, and then we are going to dive right in and dig deep into CRMs today.
We're going to do it. Okay, who am I? I'm Renee Dalo. I'm a wedding planner. I'm a designer. I am a wedding business educator. I have some online courses out there in the world for wedding planners. I have a podcast. I'm a dog mom. I'm a wife. I'm a sushi addict. I really like mac and cheese, although I feel like Jenna Kutcher has taken that away from everyone's bio now because she's a mac and cheese lover, whatever. I should go to Zumba more. These are all just things. I'm a musical theater nerd. I used to be a professional actor, and I used to do musical theater professionally. So if you get a little drink in me, I will sing the entire score of Les Mis, just everyone's parts from top to bottom.
Side note, invites Renee to my next birthday. Look out for that invitation. That's the mac and cheese thing. That's so funny and also true.
Right? Right. I love mac and cheese, but I can't talk about it now.
You can't say it. No, you can't say it. You can't say that you wear yoga pants or you like mac and cheese because then they'll just be like, no, you don't.
Exactly. Whatever. It's fine.
Also, but do you live in California?
Yeah, I live in LA, but I'm originally from New York City. I'm like a very New York person who just happens to live in LA.
Well, and I was wondering about that. I was like, I'm pretty sure she lives in California, and get good sushi, so you can be a sushi addict because y'all have great sushi out there. I feel like sometimes I'm not like total sushi addict, but I do like, I don't know, it's very childish sushi. I don't think it has raw fish in it, but I do love it. But it's way better in California than Colorado. I'm landlocked here.
You got to do what makes you happy, girl. But also, like, full disclosure, it's what is it, Wednesday? I've eaten sushi every single day this week.
Oh my gosh.
Like, the sushi place knows me. Like, I went in there yesterday after we went to this luncheon event and the food was hard. So I ordered sushi on the drive home. And when I went in there in like my dress and heels and little cardigan, the girl goes, "Oh, you look so beautiful." And I was like, "Thank you. You have seen me in sweatpants. Great." Like, I had that moment of like, you know me too well to know that I look different now.
Yeah. They're like, where was she at just now?
Yeah. Like, oh, she's fancy now. I was like, oh God. Okay. It's pretty funny.
Do you just have that one place you go to, or do you have other little haunts you like to?
No, there's like 4 in my neighborhood, and they all know me.
They all know. You're like, I just can't get away from them.
It's a big problem.
That's serious. That's a serious addiction, and I support you in that though.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for supporting me.
You're welcome. How long have you been a planner?
Oh my goodness. So I planned my first wedding 12 years ago, which makes me sound like I'm 90 years old, but that was for a friend. And then I sort of created like a little cottage business of my own without really realizing that I had a business. Like, I was doing it for friends and doing it for bartering exchanges for couches and random things in my young days. And then 6 years ago, actually almost 7 years ago now, when I got married, after my wedding planner said to me, "I have no idea why you're not a wedding planner in LA. You barely needed me." And I was like, well, I live in LA, like Mindy Weiss lives here. And she said to me, "Who cares?" And I was like, oh, like, and it's such a simple, such a basic thing to say to another human. But when she said it, I was like, oh, she's like, "It doesn't matter. There's a million wedding planners everywhere." And I was like, oh, okay. And suddenly that weird excuse that I was giving myself for not doing the thing that I really wanted to do didn't have any validity anymore. So then I really did start my business, Moxie Bright Events, in earnest after my own wedding. But I had been planning weddings for years before that as a hobby. So 12 years total, almost a little over 6 years officially, I guess.
Officially. That's impressive. And what were you doing before? I mean, of course, you've been doing this for 12 years, but what were you kind of doing before you really hit it hard with Moxie Bright, almost 7 years ago?
So I was an actor. And in New York, that meant musical theater, and that meant being on tour for a really long time. So when you're in New York and you're trying to get on Broadway, the way that path really is like you have to leave town for you have like 9 to 12-month contracts in these tours. And that was the goal. And that's what I did. So for years, I was living out of a suitcase. And then when I was finished with one of my tours, it was like Christmas time and I was back in New York with my family. And, when you're on tour, you're making a very decent living, but you don't have anything to spend it on really. So I had all this money in the bank and I thought, well, what do I want to do? Like, do I really want to be in New York? Because that's where I'm from. So although New York City is amazing, it's like just like any other small town. When you grow up there, you're like, well, what else is there? Right.
That's right.
Which for New York, it's very funny because like nothing is as good as New York, really. I can say that as a New Yorker, I suppose. But then I thought if I'm going to be an actor, I should try to go to LA. I should try LA for a little while. And so I came here and then I stayed and it's been like, 18 years now. Ridiculous. When I got to LA and I was acting, part of the deal in New York, as I'm sure you would assume as an actor, I worked in a lot of fine dining restaurants. So when I moved to LA, I had a lot of hospitality experience that was pretty like impressive for LA because they don't have like a Danny Meyer or like we have some fine dining here, but not the same way it is in New York.
That's right.
So I was able to get a job pretty much anywhere I wanted as far as hospitality went. And I ended up opening a restaurant at this shopping center called The Grove here, which is very well known. And I was there, like we broke ground on that shopping center with this restaurant. And so I ended up being part of an opening of a restaurant, which if anyone's done that, it's like you become like a family. And I worked at that restaurant. I mean, I worked every job. I started as a hostess and I ended as the event manager.
What? I love that.
I rose through the ranks. But this restaurant had small well, not really small, but a variety of sizes of banquet rooms. So we ended up doing weddings there. Not giant weddings, not high-end weddings, but we did weddings. And actually, Mindy Weiss did one of her sister's birthday parties with us. So I got to work with her.
You did?
Yeah. And she walked in my office.
Next time, start the call with that, okay? No.
I'm sorry, yes. I buried the lead, you guys. I'm sorry.
I buried the lead.
No, so she walked into the little office that I shared. At that point, I was the assistant. And she walked in and my boss didn't know who she was on site, but I certainly did. So she walked in and I went, and she looked at me and I was like, hi, how can I help you? Because I was like, be cool. And she was like, I'm interested in planning a party for my sister. And I literally looked at the girl who I worked with, Heather, and I was like, I've got this. Like, I was like, everyone get away from her. She's mine.
Beat it, Heather.
She was lovely to work with. And through my interactions with her, and we had several other like very high end people come in because it's LA. I started realizing that I really liked the work, but I didn't like working in the same place all the time. Mm-hmm. I didn't like working for the venue. That wasn't, I was good at it, but it wasn't where my heart was, Right. It was easy for me I'm a Gemini, so it's easy for me to get bored.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So you were ready I love this, but I want to basically spread my wings and expand my repertoire of where I'm doing this kind of work.
Yeah, it took me a bit to come to that, but that's eventually where I landed. Because, I think when we get burnt out or we feel like unhappy, at least I think sometimes for me, it's easy to be like, burn it down. All of this is horrible. But it's never really that, right? It's much more nuanced than that for me all the time. And so I had to really sit with myself and be like, what part of this am I not cool with anymore?
So it feels like as you talked about, acting in New York, moving to LA, it feels, and, being on the road and all of that, it feels like acting maybe provided some, I don't know. I know that acting isn't directly related to the event industry necessarily, but it still feels like having those skills and that talent really helps you think on your feet, makes you adaptable and flexible, which I think planners have to be a lot. Do you feel like you've carried over those skills at all into this industry?
Oh, so much so, especially being on the road with a show, because basically we would pull into a city. especially when I was doing the smaller tours. Like I did some children's theater tours to start with. And basically you pull into a city, you create, you put up the set, you create a world, you do the show, and then you tear it down and go to the next city and do it again the next day. And if that isn't a wedding, I don't know what is. I mean, we put up a world, we create it, we live in it for 6 hours with guests, 12 hours total. We tear it down and we move on. And that's the same thing for these theater shows that I did. And like you said, thinking on your feet, a lot of the things that I really focus on as a wedding planner is like the relationship between the guest and the host and the guest and the bride and groom of honor. And so a lot of it is about how it all feels and not just how it looks, but how it flows, right? Like from beginning to end. And that's very much a theater thing too.
Mm-hmm. So you've been planning, as in your words, in earnest for the last 7 years. When did you really start grabbing hold of like the CRM concept and really digging in and being such an advocate as you are now for it? And that's kind of what we're chatting about today. What did that look like for you? What was that process?
So at the beginning, I didn't have much of a process, right? Especially before I launched Moxie Bright. When I was doing it for friends and friends of friends and whomever, it was really sort of organic, right? It was like, well, what do you need? Here's what I think. And it was a lot of conversation, but not a lot of structure in industry. And Allison gave me some structure. And Allison was the one who said, look, I use Google Docs, but there are these other tools out there. You should check them out, right? And so at the time, it was Planning Pod was the one that I had started with. And that was my first foray into a CRM, which if you're listening and you're like, what are they talking about? CRM is an acronym for Customer Relationship Management. That's it. So I think sometimes we get into our acronyms and people are like, I don't know what's happening.
I agree. Well, I know sometimes people will say an acronym and I'm like, just say the word.
Right. Just say the word.
Just say the word so we all know.
Right. So in the wedding industry, CRM is a shorthand for any of the systems that we now use. Now, listen, I started so many years ago. There wasn't that many systems, right? I started with Aisle Planner when it started.
Oh my gosh.
I was one of the first aisle planners because I met Christina, the owner, Tina, for coffee in San Francisco when I was there for a conference. And she was like, I'm doing this thing. And I was like, great, I'll check it out. Because I didn't love Planning Pod. No offense to Planning Pod. But at the time, I was trying to wrap my brain around it. And I was trying to use it to its fullest. And I just couldn't, I don't know, it just didn't click in for me.
So that's really interesting. So you've really seen Aisle Planner from the ground up. You've seen them at the beginning and to adding all of the things that they have now. I mean, that's quite a transition in a few short years, not a ton of time.
Yeah. Well, like we said earlier, like these years go by very quickly.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. I've been with Aisle Planner since 2015.
Wow. And a lot has happened.
Crazy?
Yeah, it is crazy.
So much.
So the ones we're going to kind of focus in on today, you guys, are Honeybook and Aisle Planner. I know that we will, if it makes sense, we'll kind of stick in some other names. But really quickly, and I talk about it sometimes on the show, I will just mention that we've said this before. We've had whole episodes on it. Dubsado is another one. It's and so a lot of people email me because they don't know what I'm saying when I say that. So let me spell it. It's D as in David, U, B as in boy, SADO, Dubsado. I think I say it too fast, so I'm sorry about that. But anyway, Honeybook, Aisle Planner, Dubsado, Planning Pod, these are all CRM. So tell me, why do you think it's important that we harness the power of these things in our businesses?
Honestly, it's so many things. So first of all, I think it gives you a legitimacy that you don't get if you're just communicating through emails and Google Docs. I think you have to have the mindset of investing in your business. And honestly, these tools are so game changing that I feel like once people take that leap and do it, they're like, oh, how did I live without this? But it is that hurdle to jump over, especially if you're someone who, wants to run a very lean business and not have a lot of overhead. There is that hurdle to jump, but I swear, I just like the legitimacy that it brings you and the peace of mind that it brings you. And honestly, it's like a safety net at the end of the day.
Tell me what you mean by a safety net.
I mean, with my Aisle Planner clients, and again, I'm going to reference Aisle Planner because that's what I use.
Yeah.
But this is true for any CRM. When you set it up to work within the structure that you already use for your clients, if you set it up properly for yourself and you customize it, if you train your clients how to use it, then if they have a question, ideally their first action is not to just email you and word vomit their problem on you. Their first course of action is going, maybe I already have this information in my Aisle Planner.
And part of that is, I mean, that's part of what you preach and teach, is to teach your clients how to use this CRM, build that into your onboarding.
Absolutely. It's so essential. But even before then, though, because yes, that's essential. You have to really know how to use your CRM, because that's what I see a lot of times too. Like I talk to so many wedding planners across the country and they're like, oh, well, I have, whatever CRM, but I feel like I'm only using it like 20%.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart because you're paying for it, but you're not giving yourself the margin of time and energy and bandwidth to really dig down and learn how to use it. So if I hear people saying like, oh, well, my clients don't want to use Honeybook, I'm like, well, are you using it though? Because if you're using it and you're training them how to use it, and you keep redirecting them back to it, and that's key too, then of course they're going to use it because you're showing them by example.
That's a good point. Well, okay. So now that you've mentioned this, I feel like I kind of jumped ahead and with the teaching your clients how to use it, but let's talk about let's start with IO Planner, and why don't we dig in and do, I don't know, however many you think, 2 or 4 tips that are, especially, if you're using IO Planner right now, what are some features that you think are super valuable that maybe not all planners are using? And let's start there. Let's start with, here's what IO Planner can do for you. And here's like maybe 2, 3, or 4 things that you may not be using in your IO Planner that could totally change the face of your business.
That's amazing. So IO Planner, if you're a wedding planner especially, IO Planner is like a one-stop shop. So it's got a checklist that is client facing. There's also part of the checklist that can be back end facing that they don't have to see. So if you have something in your workflow, like sending them a receipt, that's a lame one. But if you have something like that, you can put it on your back end and they don't have to see it. So you can remind yourself to do things without ever sharing it with them, which is overall with IO Planner, there's a lot of ways to customize what they see versus what you see that I don't think people are using as well as they should, or at all. I see a lot of questions come through about like, well, I don't want them to see that part of the budget. Okay, well then you can do that on IO Planner, but you just have to understand how to work the settings, right? There's a calendar, there's a checklist, there's a timeline feature. So the timeline feature is probably one of my favorite parts of IO Planner, mostly because I don't let my clients edit it.
Oh, okay.
And I tell them that on the onboarding call. I'm like, this is here for you to look at. You do not have editing capacities for it because once upon a time, a bride went in there 2 days before her wedding and deleted it by mistake. So everyone has lost their privileges. And everyone goes, aha, it's a funny joke. But it's a way for me to continually work on their timeline throughout the planning process, especially for my full planning clients. And they cannot mess with it. And I love that the most.
Yeah, I can see why.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that day was a nightmare. I was like, oh my God, where did it go? And I recreated it because I had a printed copy, but oh Lord, no, never again. What else? It has a budget. It has a design tool, which looks similar to Pinterest, where you can like organize your Pinterest photos into categories, and then you can actually email. So like what I have my clients do is like, instead of messing with their Pinterest, which gets really messy, I say, send me the greatest hits that you love the most from those Pinterest boards. And we put them on IO Planner, and it's a nice way to edit everything down. And then I send that floral board to our florist directly through IO Planner. It's just like an email link, and it gets to them and they can see all the photos, and we don't have to add things to, emails as attachments or Google or Dropbox things. It's all through IO Planner. What else do I love? There's a lovely floor plan tool now with a seating chart. So you can also drag and drop your seating chart, which is amazing. And really like there's a contact tab, which is really your vendor tab. And then there's a notes tab. The notes tab, I think, is where I see many IO planners like not utilizing that to their advantage, because you can create templates for frequently asked questions and just drop them into their IO planner before they even get in there.
Really into the client-facing side of the IO Planner.
Correct. So
interesting.
My clients have notes that are like, how to get your marriage license, because I get asked that every week. What should be on my wedding invitation? What should be on my wedding website? Where should I register? Who's the best for tailoring? Where does my husband or if it's two grooms, where do we get our tuxes? Here. Any discount that I get through any sort of online retailer, that's in a separate section called like discounts for Moxie Bright clients. And I even started putting one in this year about like how to contact Renee, because it's very clear in my onboarding how they're allowed to reach out to me. I know that sounds probably pretty strict, but I have to be because I'm a busy person. And the note literally says like, this is my home address. This is my mailing address. This is my cell phone. Please don't use it without a scheduled call. Here's how to schedule that call. here's my outgoing voicemail, which I will never actually pick up. So please don't call it, right? It's like, here's me on Instagram. Here's me on Snapchat. I'm never on Snapchat. Do not Snapchat me. Like, I'm very clear, right? Like, this is how you can find me. Here's what I really use.
Oh, I love that. I like how detailed it is. It doesn't sound strict at all. I have a communication clause in my contract.
Yeah, I mean, you have to these days.
You do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like you're getting DMs and snaps, and you're like, don't talk to me about your design over Snapchat.
No, and I had a lovely client who I really loved these girls, but two brides, and they loved Snapchat. This was a few years ago when Snapchat was like new, and they would like DM me snaps of them out shopping for things. Like, what do you think about this? And I would forget that it was there. I would see it come in and be like, oh, I'll get to it in a minute, and then it would disappear, and I'm like, oh my God, they think I'm ignoring them, but I just am too all over the place to deal with all the different channels, right?
That's right.
So I say, like, you can see what I'm up to on Instagram, but please only email me. Like, do not Facebook message me. Don't text me. If you text me, I'm just not gonna answer, or I'm gonna screenshot it and put it in an email and send it to you that way, so that we can keep the channels, the same. But I think anything that you get asked more than twice has to be either an email template or a note and aisle planner. Because then at least if someone says, hey, I don't understand tipping, I'm like, well, there's a note and aisle planner for that. And I just direct them back to aisle planner. I don't cut and paste it into an email anymore. I'm like, you have a client portal for a reason that I pay for you. Please go use it.
Yes, I like that a lot. And so Aisle Planner, it has the client-facing checklist, the back-end checklist that's not client-facing. They have a floor plan tool. And you said they have a floor plan tool now. So that makes me feel like it's a little newer. Is that right?
Yeah, it is a little newer. I don't remember when they launched it. Earlier this year, maybe, or maybe last year.
Cool.
It's like I've been with them so long. So in my head, I'm like, it all seems quote unquote new, even though it might have been there for like 2 years now. But the floor plan software was really something that everyone was asking for, because a lot of wedding planners are using, like, you'll hear people say like, oh, well, I use Honeybook for contracts and Aisle Planner for everything else, and All Seated for floor plans, or Social Tables for floor plans. And, it adds up. So when they incorporated floor plans, it was a huge thing. And also you can do your contracts and invoices and proposals through Aisle Planner now too. So these are things that they've added over the years that really make it a one-stop shop. You really don't have to use anything else unless you really want to.
So you can do, and can your clients sign contracts digitally through Aisle Planner?
Yes, and they can pay too, and it's
Can
glorious.
pay now. That's awesome. And what's interesting is I feel like I don't think I put a lot of effort into it, because of course at the time we were not offering planning through the venue. Now we are, but I feel, and clearly I was wrong, but I think I'm tech savvy, and I thought Aisle Planner was kind of hard to start using. Does anyone ever say that to you, or are they like, this is so easy?
So I have heard that. It's funny. I'm actually developing a course about Aisle Planner that is literally like 30 days to master your Aisle Planner, because I think what happens is, for any CRM, people get into the trial period and they think, oh, this will be intuitive. I'll get to it later. And then the trial period ends, and either you start paying and you go, okay, now I really have to figure it out. Or in the trial period, you can't figure it out, and there isn't enough time or bandwidth or energy put toward figuring it out. I will say, it's hard for me to answer the question, honestly, because I've been there so long now that
True.
In my head, I'm like, well, yeah, just start. But because I'm developing this class about how to do it in 30 days, yeah, it is. What I'm hoping to do is break down the course curriculum into an hour a day. So only an hour a day. And I know that sounds like a lot when you're an entrepreneur, but if you did it before work or after work, an hour a day to get Aisle Planner working the way you want it, because that's the key. The key to all these CRMs, no matter what, is like hyper customization.
And do you think that, well, no, and I don't feel like an hour a day is that much at all, because I find myself, I taught myself Dubsado and, all the things. And I feel like that's a full-time job sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'd be sitting on there for 8 hours, and I have it now, but, still, I think an hour a day is totally acceptable. And if I knew that that's the thing about it. If I like the way you're framing this course, get it done in 30 days, because for me, if I knew it would end like in 30 days, I will know,
right,
I will be using this in a really constructive way that has, positive ROI. That would make me feel a lot more empowered. But when you have just a blanket, okay, figure out how to use this, in a matter of time that makes sense for you and your clients, it's sort of like, oh, Jesus, you have to try, anyway.
Yeah. Agreed. No, I think it's also interesting that all these CRMs have help videos, but if you don't know what you're doing, right?
What do you
don't
search
know
for?
Yes. Right. Or like, how do you know what to do first?
Exactly. Yeah, I
So
don't know what to
it's
search for.
complicated. Yeah.
It is complicated because sometimes people like Aisle Planner calls it notes. Well, it's called canned emails and templates in Dubsado. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't know what to,
Right,
you know,
right.
you don't know the language. And that's actually, I think the reason I feel so strongly about having other people who've gone before you making these valuable courses like you are is because I used to work at Acuity Scheduling. And for me, I was on the inside of it every day. And so I felt like it was so easy to use. But then we'd get tons of emails from new clients who were like, I just do not get it. And I'm like, of course you don't. Like, you don't even know what to search for in the FAQ section. That makes sense.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the Aisle Planner course has been something I've been developing for a long time. The thing about courses that is so funny, sorry, this is a side tangent, but
No,
is that
I love it.
Courses that take a long time to create. And in my head, I'm like, I'm super productive. This is going to take me like a week. And then it's been like 6 months. And I'm like, okay, we're still doing it. We're trudging along because I'm more of a like, let's get it done. So to me, like, I agree with you, 30 days to master something or to at least get it working so that I can feel the benefit of the money that I'm putting into it seems, that's what you want. And I agree with you. It's like, you have to sometimes, the people who create the products aren't always the best person to teach the products because they're not coming from a place of like, okay, I'm a clean slate. What happens now?
Yes, that's right. You have to have somebody who has gone through it and is using it in the way that you want to use it. Not even, I feel like I could teach wedding photographers, planners, bridal shop owners, venue owners how to use something like Acuity Scheduling really well. But if you come to me for your real estate company, I would be like, well, I mean, I can teach you the basics, but it may not be exactly what you want.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about a lot about what Aisle Planner can do. Let's talk about the benefits that you've seen. Let's talk about like pre-Aisle Planner in Moxie Bright and post-Aisle Planner in Moxie Bright. Can you give us some of those tangible benefits that you've seen?
Oh my gosh. So it's funny because we bought a new desktop a few months ago. And so I was taking all of the content from the old desktop and determining like what needed to move over. And I found some of my old timelines and some of my old like to-do lists from weddings back when I was planning pod and that there was a time period between planning pod and Aisle Planner where I was like, maybe Google Docs is what's going to happen. It was a bad idea. And everything was so like one of the documents didn't have my business name on it or my name.
They're like, this is just a list. This is just a list.
It's just an inventory list. It had the couple's name. It had the wedding date, thank God. But the rest of it, I was like, what was I doing? Like, it was just like word vomit. So that's kind of the best description I can have before Aisle Planner. Before Aisle Planner, the thing with Aisle Planner that I super love is that everything always looks the same way now. So when my assistants and my lead planners, if for some reason I'm not there or right in front of them, they know exactly where to look for the things that they need to do their job. And everything has a template. So the timeline, although hyper customized, always kind of looks the same. If my assistants need to know what's happening for the ceremony, they know that I've highlighted it with a yellow highlighter and it's in blue type. And, they know exactly what to expect where. And I think it's little, right? It's almost subconscious, but these are the things that make our lives easier. Is just the repetitive systemizing of this work. Because, especially for wedding planners on the day of, so much of our job is in the moment and emotional and pivoting and plan B, that if your paperwork is the same all the time, that's just a soft place to land, I think.
I agree. Well, and this might be a silly question. I have two questions, actually. So you mentioned kind of the time between Planning Pod and Aisle Planner. I assume Aisle Planner will construct timelines for you.
Yes. So what Aisle Planner has built in is like a standard template. Like you can just drag and drop it in and then fill it in as you go. What I've created over the years are templates for the kind of weddings that we do. So I have a template for a heterosexual wedding. I have templates for 2 grooms. I have templates for 2 brides. I have templates for what I call an East Coast timeline. And I have timelines for a West Coast timeline, which just means the amount of dancing. So I have all of these templates saved and I can just drag and drop my templates. I have templates saved for styled shoots, for industry events, because I'm on the board of WIPA. So when we do one of our events, I know that's a very specific thing we do. So it's very easy once you get going in the system to really just save the work that you do repetitively and not have to do it from scratch every single time.
Oh, I like that. So create once, use many.
Exactly.
That's great. So what are some, if you had do you feel like aisle planner is something that a brand new planner needs right away, or should they just implement that in their business? I feel like I know your answer. Or is it something that they can wait on? I mean, we did talk about, yeah, I love it. Okay.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about waiting.
Tell me.
I absolutely remember those days when I was bootstrapping it and nickel and diming it, and I get it, right? I so get it. But this industry is small and people's attention spans or memories are long, rather. You have to lead with your best foot forward because it's too competitive. Start with something, even if it's not aisle planner, even if you want to start with something like Asana or Trello, something that wouldn't necessarily be something you invite a client to, but just something that you need for your own brain. You have to get it out of your head and onto paper, because eventually you're going to have someone to do this work with you or for you. And by then it's going to be such a monumental thing to get your systems down that you can't even wrap your brain around it. Furthermore, when you're trying to book a client, I mean, let's be clear. When I am in a consult with my clients, I talk about aisle planner a lot. I talk about it because it's a benefit to them. It is a benefit to them to have this software that I'm paying for, that they get to use for free or rolled into the price. It doesn't matter. And it's a benefit to them. So I talk about it. I send them a video about aisle planner when I send them their proposal. I get them excited to use the tool before they even book me, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a wedding planner that's new and you're coming up against me talking about aisle planner, wouldn't you want that too? Wouldn't you want some advantage of your own? So I feel like starting with Google Docs and trying to piece it together, it's a valiant effort, but it's going to serve you better to just start with something, make it your own, and run with it.
I really like what you said. You have to lead with your best foot forward because the industry is too competitive. I mean, boom. That's just wrapped up in a sentence.
I love this industry and I'm a big champion of community over competition, but that doesn't mean that competition doesn't exist.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, these are businesses that we're running. We have to make our money. No shame in that game. And if you have a system that you use and love and that you are a master at, use that to your advantage. Use that all day long.
That's right. Let's talk about Honeybook a little bit. So you're using both, obviously.
I used to use Honeybook for all of my contracts, but I have recently moved everything over to Aisle Planner now because I really do like the idea of having everything in one place. But I used Honeybook for years for contracts, and I do love it. They have so many amazing features for contracts and payments and all that good stuff.
They really do. And not everyone listening, Aisle Planner won't be the best fit for everybody listening because we have calligraphers, we have photographers, and Honeybook is just going to crush it for you. For sure. Or, even venues who aren't offering like planning or anything like that. So let's talk about Honeybook. Obviously it has some of the similar benefits, right? You're looking very professional. It allows you to keep track of things more easily. Of course, you can collect invoices and sign contracts, but what is something that you found in your business that Honeybook really filled the void in before you, of course, moved to Aisle Planner?
Oh my gosh. Honeybook does automated payments. Now, the thing that I love about Honeybook is that for my wedding planning clients, I put everyone on a payment plan because it's easier for my cash flow. And I know that's among wedding planners, it's a very divisive argument. A lot of people try to take half up front. I don't believe in that because guess what? I have not done half the work when you pay me. That seems punitive to me. So I only take 25% up front.
So hold on, let me just clarify really quickly.
Sure.
So you by payment plan, you mean true installment payment plan. And then you said Honeybook allows you to do a payment plan. Does that mean it'll automatically charge them?
Yes,
like
it will.
recurring payment. It's not just a reminder email for them to actually take. Oh, okay. Sorry. Just had to clarify. Keep going.
No, this is amazing. They can actually set it up as an auto payment with their credit card. Do you know that I've never paid late with Honeybook? I have never had a late, I just want to say that again. I've never had a late payment with Honeybook.
From a client.
Yeah, that's almost impossible to say.
That's literally almost impossible.
So when I set up a contract in Honeybook, so like say someone's with me for a year, we're planning their wedding for a year. Mm-hmm. And normally I do 4 payments because again, it's easier for my cash flow. So I want to make sure I say that a lot for the planners who are listening who think like, oh, I need to take half up and half 2 weeks before the wedding. No, you can do whatever you want. And so the way I run my business, more payments is better for me. And I just go through my calendar and I literally have a cash flow spreadsheet. I figure out what months are low, and that new client gets put in the months that are low. And hopefully it makes sense, right? Hopefully it's not like 2 months in a row, but I try to space it out. Once I set those dates on their contract, on their, payment portal in Honeybook, then that's it. I have never had a client come back and say, like, can you move one of those payments? They don't care. They know when it's expected. It's fine. They most of the time put their credit card on auto pay. They can also pay with like a bank transfer too. And then it's done. I never, unless I'm using Honeybook for the other tools, they don't have to go back in there. They literally never mention it again. It's just on autopilot. It is amazing.
It just is what it is. That's awesome.
It is what it is. And the reminders actually come from Honeybook. They're not, actually like this. The reminders are not white label. So the reminder is not coming from Moxie Bright. Their payment, like upcoming payment, is coming from a third party, which makes it, I think, a little more legitimate and not so personal. Like, you're paying me. You know what I mean? It's like it's a nice third party experience, I think.
I have never heard it mentioned that way. That's true. It can feel less like Renee is taking money from you.
Correct.
I mean, which is still like, you got to get paid. I'm not worried about it, but
right.
I've never heard it talked about in that way. I like that a lot. That's a really good point. It's just like any other credit card bill becoming due or what have you.
Exactly.
It's less like, oh, now I'm paying this human.
Right.
Which in a way is, of course we like to personalize our businesses. Don't hear what we're not saying, people.
Yes.
But in a way, I feel like that kind of separates you from that, finances are so personal. Anyway, now I'm just talking out loud because I've really never heard anyone talk about it like that. That's interesting.
Well, I also think, if I can put on my feminist hat for a moment, I know that all your listeners are not women, but let's just go with it.
Majority.
I think as women, we get a little weird about money sometimes. We shouldn't be, but culturally we're conditioned to like not ask for the money and it's weird. And although I don't love that societal conditioning, Honeybook allows us to sort of have someone else be asking for our payments. And it kind of gives that little distance between, there's a different feeling in paying a credit card payment rather than Venmoing someone money. That's a different transaction. And I like that Honeybook allows it to feel a little bit more like we're running these bigger businesses because the payment is coming from a third party. That's my point. And it's easier, I think, for women to feel good about the money that way.
Someone's listening right now and they are looking up Honeybook just for this specific feature because that is a huge roadblock. Well, it's true. It's true though, because that might be a huge roadblock for them or something that they've really struggled with. So they are thinking, I don't care what it is, Honeybook is worth it to me for that. And another great kind of like notch on the win column is that you mentioned that it makes it feel like we're running these bigger businesses, which, we're not saying fake it until you make it, but it is nice for people to take you seriously and professionally. Like you already said, start with your best foot forward.
And I really think, not discounting authenticity. Of course, we always want that. Of course, but sometimes I think you really do have to act as if, quote unquote, I'm making air quotes, as if you're a bit of a bigger deal than you are sometimes. Because sometimes that gives you the confidence to do the things you're supposed to be doing.
I think so too. I don't think we have to act like a mom and pop shop to be quote authentic.
I agree.
No offense to mom and pop shops. That's not what I meant. I just meant like, I don't think you need to act like, oh, it's fine. This is just my little business run from my kitchen table. We don't have to act like that.
Exactly.
We can be CEOs even if you started yesterday.
Oh, yes.
I love it. Okay. What else about Honeybook that we need to know?
It's really pretty. You can make very pretty proposals. Honeybook, you're like really pretty. Really pretty. Honeybook has a lot of great features. Honeybook actually, you can integrate it with a calendar app called Calendly. I know you're an Acuity girl, but Calendly is a similar situation. And you can what am I trying to say? Not marry them together, but like you can send a response to a lead with an integration of your calendar, which is very cool.
That is cool. I like that. So what you're saying is if somebody inquires with you using that lead capture form from Honeybook, the response can be integrated with a Calendly appointment.
Correct. You can also integrate the back end of Honeybook with your QuickBooks.
Oh, interesting. So it will categorize all of your payments that are coming through Honeybook into your QuickBooks?
Yes. It also has very cool There's a bookkeeping feature where you can see your upcoming payments if you don't keep an OCD cash flow spreadsheet like I do. But maybe you all should be doing that because it really saves my life most months. There's a report, like you can literally see like, how did I do this year versus last year? They also have a time tracker, which, to be completely fair, I have not used, but I know a lot of photographers who use it to track their time on each wedding to make sure that like they're not editing for 25 hours or whatever. But you literally just go in and log your time, and you can do it under each specific project that you have. So each project would be like each wedding, each event. You can do it that way. And then they also have a mobile app, which is very useful on the go. Like you could literally, if you wanted to, send a contract from your phone if you didn't have your laptop with you.
Can you take payments on that app?
You can. There is a different feature that happens when you take payments in person. Like they have a pay in person like toggle that you have to. So if like you're sitting with a client and they're like, let's do it. It's like a different way into the portal. But I've never done the payment in person because I'm much more of like a, hey, let's Skype and then I'll send you something and then we'll Skype some more. I'm not an in person necessarily that much. But there's also aside from the app, like in the actual software, there's the same kind of templating. There's tasks lists, there's libraries. You can, especially good for photographers, you can keep a lot of promo photos in there. So when you're putting together your proposal and everything, you can pull in your own photos, which is key. Honeybook they've really also, like Aisle Planner, they've grown over the years to incorporate a lot more things. And the cool thing about Honeybook is for any CRM, by the way, so they have like a Facebook group where like the insiders go. And you should definitely be in that Facebook group for whatever CRM you're using, because then you'll know first what the updates are. So like Honeybook updates in that group like every week. They're like, oh, here we added something for you, or we tweaked this for you, or, because with Honeybook, you can also, it's also like integrated with your Gmail if you use Gmail for business. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of talk about like everyone really wanted an out of office. Like you can put your out of office on Gmail, but you can't put your out of office on Honeybook. And that's something that they've been working on for a while. And I think one of the last updates I saw was like, it's close. Because like these tech guys can do, shouldn't say guys, these tech people, they can do everything. They just need time to work it out,
Yeah. And so are people asking and answering each other's questions in, like, for instance, the Honeybook Facebook group?
Yes. I mean, that's what I see. Yes, and also the people who who build the software in there, like even in We Are Aisle Planners is the Aisle Planner group. Tina, the owner, she's in there all the time. Like, hey guys, we have an update today, or anyone on the team, you can tag them and they'll answer you. And so it's really great. I mean, I know everyone not everyone, but some people are like poo-pooing technology these days, or like, oh, I'm always on Facebook. But if you're using these things correctly, like you can get a lot of really quick answers and get your problem solved and get that ROI on these CRMs that you need.
That's a really good tip, because it's so true. We have sometimes, and I find myself doing it as well. So like, oh my gosh, I'm part of too many groups, or this, that, and the next thing. Yeah. But of course, I'm thinking I'm not part of any of the tech groups for all of the CRMs I'm using. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to do it. I just made a note. I'm like, go on there right after this call to do it. That's such a great tip. And you're so right. You can, a lot of times you'll probably get the answer faster than you would otherwise. And you know what I'm really appreciating about this episode is I've had episodes where we've dug in to, specific CRMs, but really more not in this way, not in a here's exactly what the features are and how they could benefit your business. And I really like where we're going with this, because like, for instance, I haven't had anyone on to talk about Aisle Planner at all, or Honeybook, actually. It's all been like Dubsado. Yeah, it's all been, I mean, we've mentioned Honeybook a lot, but specifically the episodes have been about like Dubsado and other things. And like I say, it's really been more from like an overarching 30,000 foot bird eye view, instead of, hey, these are the actual features and here's how they benefit you. And I feel like this is such a good way to look at it, because there's a lot of us listening right now. Maybe we haven't made the jump to a CRM yet. Maybe we want to sign up for a free trial, but like you and I talked about, sometimes it can be hard to know where to get started. And so I really feel like this episode has given people those starting points, or to say, oh my gosh, I'm not using those templates in Aisle Planner. I'm going to go do that now.
The other thing I'll say about the trial period is that I know for a fact, because I do it myself, I sign up for trial periods when I'm like, oh, I need this, as opposed to when I have time to explore it.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And so frequently I will run out a trial period, not on CRMs. I've been trying to switch email marketing systems, and I've done it with like 3 different ones. I'm like, oh, I just need this. And then I'll get in it. And I'm like, I don't have time. I don't have time to learn this. And so if you're listening and you think like, oh, I want to switch or I want to try, if you're in the height of your wedding season right now, maybe just give it a minute. Maybe just wait. Wait until you have time to work in your business, or like, on your business, not in your business. So the working on the business, sometimes it has to wait for the slow season, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. And also, don't be afraid to ask for an extension, because almost everybody will give it to you.
Oh, right. Very true.
That's so true. It's better than I would, if I want to go start IO Planner, it's better for me to do it in about a month from now when we're done with weddings, instead of, back in June.
Exactly. Exactly. Now,
tip.
Listen, you might feel the need for it in June.
Right.
But hopefully if you have the self-awareness to go, I'm going to need that. Let me work on it in December or January or whatever, when I have a minute,
Yeah. Don't set yourself up to fail.
Exactly. Be nice to yourself.
Yeah. So did we miss anything? Is there anything else you want to touch on when it comes to IO Planner or Honeybook? I feel like we really covered a lot of ground in both of those systems. I feel like we did too. I
would just say, like, as an overarching, not final comment, but just, CRMs are your friend. I see sometimes some language in the Facebook groups that are like, do I really need to spend more money on that? The answer is yes, you probably do need to spend more money on that, because it's going to make you better. And isn't that what we all want? I just want to be better than who I was yesterday, right? And if any of these tools can help me get there, help me work better, help me work faster, help me work smarter, give me more free time. Oh my God, like my kingdom for a free day, right? So any of these things that can help, like the CRM could be the thing that's going to unlock that for you. And you're not going to know unless you just dive in. So you do some educated research, do the trial periods, really dive into those trial periods, ask for help, seek out education on it, and then just use it and see how it works for you.
Yes. You have something special for IO Planner, which makes me very excited. What is that?
I do. So our friends at IO Planner are giving all of your podcast listeners 30 days free plus 25% off. Yes, 25% off any plan for the first 3 months. Even the big, like, kahuna of all the plans, which is not the plan that I'm on. IO Planner has many levels. I probably should mention that. So Honeybook has like one flat price. IO Planner, you're charged based on how many projects you have active, right?
Oh,
so
okay, cool.
The lowest you can go is 10 projects, and the highest you can go is 100 projects. And that's at the same time, right? So like you have a wedding that ends, you archive it. That's no longer an active project. So you have to think about what your workflow is. I am on the 25 projects at a time because my business, we tend to not do more than 18 weddings a year, sometimes 20, rarely 25 anymore because I'm not a masochist anymore. But, I try. But the price point is different depending on how many weddings you have. When I was speaking at Wedding MBA last year, one of the questions I got after I presented was, we're a company that does, 75 weddings a year, and the price per month of IO Planner is too expensive for us. And my question is, well, are you rolling that into your price to the client? Because listen, I'm not about like itemizing. They don't need to know that you're charging them an extra $20 a month because of IO Planner or whatever. But it's such a valuable tool that just roll in the price. Just make it part of your bottom line, because it's going to end up saving you so much in the long, especially if you're doing 65 weddings a year. Can you imagine? Like, I'm sure your venue is doing way more than that, right?
No, we're not. We're only open May through October.
Oh, that's right. Because seasons. See, in LA, we have no seasons. It's just like sometimes it rains. Like that's what we get.
You have no seasons. You're always open.
You're pretty much always open. Like
you're like 7-Eleven.
Seriously, this year I'm taking December off. Like I decided no December weddings. And people are still like, what do you mean you're booked in December? And I'm like, well, I'm just not, because everyone wants to get married in December because it's still pretty temperate here. Anyway, tangent. But my point is, this discount code will give you 25% off your first 3 months for any of the levels, which is amazing.
That's amazing. And you get a 30-day free trial with that?
Yes.
That's so exciting. And see,
Yes.
I do like that. I'm sorry. I know we've kind of ridden the dead horse of trials, but it's really important that I feel like 30 days is so nice because when I see a 7-day trial, I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know. I can't with 7
trial.
days.
You're like, what is this, my full-time job now?
Exactly.
This. I know. I was on a 7-day trial and I was like, this isn't going to go well.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not even signing up for that because I know that's a waste of my life. I just can't. So thank you for 30 days because that is that's so much more realistic for us. And remember, you guys, when you sign up for Aisle Planner, when you use this trial, don't forget to do what Renee said and do it. Set yourself up for success. And you may need it right now, but if you're in the thick of wedding season, give yourself some time, take a minute, like she says, and do it when you have the time to invest so that it can see a positive return. And then I know, Renee, it may not be out by the time we publish this episode, but I will follow up when your Aisle Planner course is out because I think that's going to be really valuable.
Thank you. I will be sure there'll be a big launch when it's ready because God knows it's taken me so long that by the time it comes, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops that it's here.
I'm going to pop champagne for you.
The link for the Aisle Planner, I made it really easy. I gave you guys a little pretty link. It's just reneedalo.com/Aisle Planner, AISLE planner. So you can just go there and get the link.
Planner. And as always, friends, that is in the show notes. If you have any issues finding the show notes, I know that sometimes that can be a little tricky. DM me on Instagram. I'll help you find the show notes. Or if you just go to Google and type in how to find show notes enter your podcast player name, it will show you exactly what to do. So I know sometimes we're all using different podcast players these days. So it's different in Apple, in Overcast, all the things. But if you have troubles, you just let me know. But the link is in the show notes. Renee, tell everyone where they can find you.
Oh my goodness. So my favorite place to hang out on the internet is obviously Instagram because it's beautiful. Yes. I have 2 Instagram handles. I've got Moxie Bright Events, which is my business, wedding planning business name, but I also share some personal stuff on there. That's MOXIE, the word bright, GHT, and then events. And then I also have an Instagram handle for my podcast, which is @Talk with Renee Dalo.
I'm excited about that. And again, guys, these will be in the show notes so you can connect with Renee on Instagram. Go listen to her new podcast, Talk with Renee. So exciting. I'm so happy for you and your show. And you probably know her from her other podcast, Rock Your Wedding Biz, but now she has this new one. So go listen to that.
Yay. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry I talked to you for almost an hour. I know I said it would be like 30 minutes, but I lied.
No, I'm into it. I love it. Okay. Thank you for having me. This was amazing.
It was amazing. Thank you so much, Renee. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.